Hi there. Welcome to another episode of RestorationCast in the Bible.
All I can do is sit here and shake my head. Last week it was a donkey. This week it's gotten worse. We find an overweight slug, which is a very unpopular truth.
Yeah.
Restoration Cast, here we are.
Here we are.
Yoda the Hutt?
Java.
Yeah, I didn't think it was Yoda. Yoda's the little guy with the funny ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who speaks funny. Jabba the Hutt.
It's Jabba with a B.
Jabba the Hutt. Wasn't even saying it right. I grew up on Star Wars. I can't even say it. He wasn't exactly a hero.
He was not. Neither was the fat guy from the story we're talking about today.
Boy, that was quite the segue, Sonny. No, you did it, so it wasn't me that segued. You segued. That was quite the prompt for a segue, Sonny.
Yeah. So here's your questions for all of our restoration students. Assuming you can read them.
I can.
My iPad made the screen a little smaller.
The
than
screen's
it
a
usually
little bit
is.
smaller, but you know, what can we do about that?
I don't know.
Nothing.
We can't?
No, we're going to be fine. What we can do is, if I have to, when I edit this, I'll just zoom in on us.
All right. Anyway, so there's your questions.
Thank you, Gabriel.
You're welcome. So let's get in and talk
Man,
about
this just gets worse.
The story is as bad as the pictures I'm putting up.
I really, really liked last week. The Talking Donkey is like one of my favorites. But I think you and Bryson would agree that one of the stories that has given me so much fun over the years has been this one right here.
That's true. For years, I talked about this story. Every time somebody asked me, what's your favorite Bible story? This is where I went. Ehud and Eglon. And that's what we're talking about today. I've matured past some of the gross out humor. And so whenever people ask me, what's your favorite Bible story now, I don't say the same thing.
You don't?
But I still have a boyish appreciation for it in my heart.
I do. I say the same thing. I mean, we have got fat man, toiletries, embarrassment, sneaking in and leaving the weapon behind. We got it all in this.
Yes, it's a great story.
It's a great story.
Yep.
And it's in the Bible?
Yes, it is. All right, so what we're looking at this morning, tonight.
It's not even close to morning.
Maybe you're watching this during the morning, though, because we're going to post these later.
That's true. It could be morning where you are.
Yeah. Hopefully it is.
It's not for us, though.
No, it is.
The end of a very long day. Sundays are huge for us, aren't they?
Yep. I just spent the weekend in Henderson, Tennessee.
He was all the way over in Tennessee.
Yes, that's where Free Hardeman is. I was at the camp.
What were you there for?
The Global Missions Experience.
Global Missions Experience.
Yes. It has nothing to do with Eglon.
Nothing to do with old Eglon, but I do like that toilet.
Thanks.
It's clean. That's one of my biggest fears when I travel.
Is the toilet won't be clean?
Dirty toilets. I hate them. But that's not...
I imagine the toilet in this story was not very clean.
Dead man sitting. Go ahead.
All right, so to lead into the story, because it's sort of long, so I had to cut off a little bit. But the segue into it at the beginning basically is what you would expect from the book of Judges, right? The children of Israel, they have turned away from God and started worshiping idols again. And God sent a king, a fat king.
I prefer the word obese, and so does your mother.
Does she?
I don't know. Well, you remember last week? What was the word she used?
Mucus.
Mucus. I said spit. She said mucus. No, I believe you got it. He was a fat man.
Yes. Yeah, and so God sends the Moabites, led by King Eglon, to...
And his mom. Who names a fat man Eglon?
He probably wasn't fat at the time.
He was fat as a baby. This guy came out the womb fat. I believe it.
That might be true. I don't know.
Eglon.
Anyway, so King Eglon...
He was teased in school.
He was king.
But when he went to school...
He was prince. I don't think people were allowed to tease him.
By the way, just kind of an aside here, since we're trying to keep him off track as much as possible. If you've got a young boy in your family, maybe junior high age, and he's just not really interested in Scripture, get him the Book of Judges. Once he gets done with Judges, you'll say, "Oh wow, that's in the Bible."
That's true.
Okay,
the last couple chapters are not appropriate for.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Not appropriate for junior high young men.
I don't think so. I probably did read it in junior high, but
You heard
content warning.
Content warning. It's a little bit like the Song of Solomon. You gotta choose your moments.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's also a little bit like Sodom and Gomorrah. That particular story.
There's a little bit in there that when you read it, just a cursory reading, you get little Johnny and little Susie with big eyes saying, "Mama, Daddy, what does that mean?" And you're really in an awkward moment then.
Yeah, so...
read with caution.
Yeah, I think everything except the last couple chapters is fine. And, don't cut the last couple chapters out of your Bible, because that's wrong. But save them for later.
Later, because he's not ready for that.
I mean, I guess. You're their parents,
Yeah,
so
I don't
you make the decision. It's not up to me.
We don't even know their kid.
That's true. Maybe they are mature enough to handle it. I don't know.
We don't know.
Anyway.
I don't have anything more to say.
Eglon.
Eglon the fat man.
Yeah, so he comes and he takes over Israel and enslaves them.
Enslaves Israel.
And as God does, whenever the children of Israel cry out to him, he sends them a judge to rescue them. And that's where we pick up our story today.
Right.
So this is Judges chapter 3, starting in verse 15. It says, "Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, and the Lord raised up for them a deliverer, Ehud, or Ehud, depending on who you are.
Either way, it's better than Eglon."
Yeah. The son of Gera, the Benjaminite, a left-handed man.
Is it interesting that they needed to mention that left-handedness?
Oh, it comes up later.
So I needed hush. Okay, good.
The people of Israel sent tribute by him to Eglon, the king of Moab. And Ehud made for himself a sword with 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he bound it on his right thigh under his clothes. And he presented a tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man.
Just so everybody sees, it does not say obese.
No, it doesn't.
He just comes right out and says it. He's a fat man.
Yes, at least the ESV.
NIV too.
Yeah.
You can't find a major translation that calls it obese.
Yeah, I'm not sure if obese is actually a more polite term.
Oh, it's not?
I don't know. I haven't given this a lot of consideration before, because usually, you just don't talk about it.
You just don't discuss it. Well, it's kind of like the other word for donkey. I don't know which one I'm supposed to use. If I'm reading the King James, I'm going to use a 3-letter word. If I'm reading the NIV, I'm going to use fat.
If I'm reading the King James, I just bleep it out.
You bleep it. When I read about Balaam, I read 2-word bleep, 2-word bleep. A lot of bleeping in that story. All right, let's go back with Fat Man.
Yeah, so Eglon was a very fat man. And
you already read that.
It needed emphasis.
Okay.
And when Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who carried the tribute. But he himself turned back at the idols near Gilgal and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king."
Nothing like a secret to get you.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
And he commanded silence, and all his attendants went out from his presence. And Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Ehud said, "I have a message from God for you."
I guess it really was from
Yeah, I guess so.
You said so.
And he arose from his seat, and Ehud reached with his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. And the hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not pull the sword out of his belly. And the dung came out, which is a detail I am not sure needed to be added.
You know, it doesn't even say that in the NIV. It completely skips the dung comment.
It does?
Yeah, Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed over it. And Ehud went out of the porch and shut the door. Doesn't even include the dung statement. I like
the NIV says the fat closed over it.
What is yours?
Mine says the dung came out. So, that might be a translation thing.
That could be.
They're just translating the same sentence differently.
Same sentence, different. Either way, it's gross.
Yes, it is. Then Ehud went out into the porch and closed the doors of the roof chamber behind him and locked them. When he had gone out, the servants came, and they saw that the doors of the roof chamber were locked. They thought, "Surely he's relieving himself in the closet of the cool chamber." Which is...
I don't take a break in the closet. What does he mean when he says relieving himself?
What do you think it means?
I think we know.
And they waited till they were embarrassed.
Our king, do you have constipation?
But when he still did not open the doors of the roof chamber, they took the key and opened them, and there lay their lord dead on the floor.
A big spot in the floor.
Yes.
A rather large dead man in the floor.
Ehud escaped while they delayed, and he passed beyond the idols and escaped to Seirah. When he arrived, he sounded the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. Then the people of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he was their leader. And he said to them, "Follow after me, for the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." So they went down after him, and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, and did not allow anyone to pass over. And they killed at that time about 10,000 of the Moabites, all strong, able-bodied men. Not a man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years.
80 years.
80 years.
One of the things about this story, and maybe you're talking about it, but it's kind of off topic, but it's odd to me how that you could kill a king, and all of a sudden the country falls apart. It's not unlike Goliath, you know? I mean, he's a big dude, I get that. But it's not like he was the whole army.
Mm-hmm.
But you kill Goliath, chop his head off, and all of a sudden they're running, you know? Eglon, this guy can't even get out of his bedchamber, toilet, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? But kill the king, guess what? We're all scared to death. Now, some of this obviously is God, okay, we're done, and so God's coming in and he's delivering his people. I get all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of interesting how that, you know, from the top down, all of a sudden you take out the leader and everybody feels like we don't have any purpose anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, you kind of have this, the Old Testament almost, I don't know, plays by like chess rules.
Yes,
You
that's a good point.
Kill the king, it's automatic, you win.
Good illustration.
I mean, that's not exactly how it works, obviously. Like later on, at least for Israel, but they kill King Josiah, and things don't turn out well for them. But that happens much later on, right?
Yeah.
And so, Mom commented something.
I can't read it.
She says, "You guys are having too much fun with this passage."
Well, have you seen me lately? It's fun to laugh at yourself. Now, I don't believe I'm quite as big as Eglon, not even Eglon, but
Yes.
I could stand to lose a few pounds.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually clarify how fat is.
That's a good point. Well, he's fat enough for the sword to disappear.
That's true, and
That's a little bit.
The sword is a cubit long.
What is a cubit?
Like 18 inches.
Elbow to
It's
here?
supposed to be, yeah.
Pretty
So
good
that's
sword to get in your gut.
yeah. So he's very large,
He's very large.
and not only does it go in, it gets surrounded.
It disappears.
Right? Yeah.
There's enough on the front that when it goes in, or in the back, there's just enough width there that it can take a cubit and
Yes.
hide it inside.
Yeah. So this is not just like, he's not just like regular overweight.
It's not your average fat man.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're going to get to our thing, but he wasn't really on the toilet. I always kind of put that in my head, But,
Like his throne is a toilet.
Yeah, I guess that's what I did. But, it's clearly that they thought he was in the toilet.
Yeah. Which the indication, since they say he's in the closet of the cool chamber, seems to kind of imply that there's actually like a bathroom in the throne room where he can
It does, doesn't it?
go for a little privacy.
So it's his own little private toilet.
Yes.
But he was not on the toilet, as I've always imagined. That kind of takes a little bit of the shine off of the story. Because I don't know, why would he have put him on the toilet? That don't make any sense.
He wouldn't.
And he didn't.
No.
Okay, go on.
Yeah. So cultural problems with this story.
Yeah, it's not just cultural.
Number one, how did Ehud manage this without getting caught?
I've thought that. I mean, did they not pat him down on the way in?
I don't know. I would sure think they would. But question 2 is, why was Eglon so fat?
We're going to solve that one for you tonight. Everybody's going on diets after this particular broadcast.
I'm not sure if that question was actually phrased the right way, because I don't know if I actually answered that question.
Well, up to this point, you hadn't answered any of them very well.
Oh, that's true. But what I have written down, I'm not sure if it actually answers that question so much as, like, why does the Bible care that Eglon is so fat?
Why mention it?
Yeah, exactly. Because,
okay,
like, there's no way of knowing what actually happened to Eglon. Does he just eat a lot, or does he have some kind of health problems that are contributing to this, or it doesn't say, right?
Fact
Certainly does not describe the process by which he became.
It doesn't describe, and that's a disclaimer. We need to put that.
Yes. So I don't know.
But he sits
So
on the throne
don't
a
ask
lot,
me.
and he's a king eating a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
there's a few indicators here of a lack of self-control.
That would make sense. Yes.
I mean, he didn't have the guy patted down on the way into the chamber. Anyhow, go ahead.
Number 3 is, what do the idols at Gilgal have to do with anything?
I noticed that
they get
landmark.
mentioned twice.
Yeah.
And first time is like this moment of decision.
Yeah, I
For
think I'll go back.
for Ehud, which is odd because he's made the sword already.
Yeah.
So, it kind of, surely he had already decided to kill Eglon.
I think it was for dramatic effect. Are
Could
we
be.
allowed to talk about these yet?
I guess so. I mean,
Well, because he turns around and says, I got a secret for you.
mhm.
And so I think it was kind of like, I'm on my way home, but I forgot. I got to tell you something.
That could be. Could also be, it mentions that there's other people bringing tribute to Eglon.
Yeah.
So maybe he wants to be the only one there.
Oh, that's
or
good. Yeah.
Use of him not getting caught. Anyway, I just thought of that just now.
Thank you for thinking of it.
This picture, by the way, is 2 guys boxing,
They're boxing.
and I did that because of the term southpaw, which is a left-handed boxer.
Left-handed. Southpaw.
Yes,
That was good.
thank you. But I had to explain the joke, so
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't that good.
It's only that good.
All right, so problem number 1. How does Ehud pull this off without getting caught?
I don't have a clue. I mean, you'd think a sword strapped to your hip would show up somewhere.
Yeah. So the short answer to this, I think, is God wants Ehud to win, right?
So it's a miracle.
Probably there's.
That's what I pray for every time I go through one of those scanners at the airport. God, please help them not to see the shotgun I've got under.
You're gonna get banned.
I don't think God. I have never. I don't own a shotgun.
That's not true.
It's sort of true. It's a different kind of gun.
Pretty sure you have a shotgun. Don't you? Hey, Rick, forget all that.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's not small enough to put in anything.
I would never wear it on my hip to go through any scanning process.
Yes.
And hope to hide it.
Yeah, exactly. And they did not have metal detectors during this time. And just in case you didn't know that.
There it is. That's how we answered one. Let's move on to two.
Yep, that's what it is. No, but, I mean, what this story espouses is...
Espouses. The guy goes to college and he comes home using words we don't even understand.
Yep.
Espouses.
I don't even understand some of them. But, basically what it's saying is Ehud is left-handed, and in order to draw a weapon of this time period, specifically like a dagger or something along those lines, in order to draw it efficiently, you'd have to draw it across your body. And so he puts it on his right thigh, and they're probably going to check his left thigh because they're going to assume he's right-handed, so he's going to draw from this angle, right? But he doesn't. So
that would make sense. And I mean, you already asked kind of the question: why even bring up his fatness? Why even bring up Ehud's left-handedness unless there's not something playing in there? Go ahead. Good point.
Yeah, and so there's kind of an explanation in there of why this would happen, but I think a lot of this is what we would typically chalk up to luck, right?
Yeah.
Random chance that they just happen to not check, because it seems kind of dumb, to not just go ahead and check both sides.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's not luck, right? It's God. But I think there is some of that aspect to this whole thing that, this is more than just Ehud being clever, right? Ehud's plan probably shouldn't work, but it does, and that's largely because of God, right? Entirely because of God.
Yeah, I think that's a very excellent point. I would like to suggest, though, that if he's doing this whole return to the castle, whatever, to tell you a secret thing, that might have also been a clever plan, in that on the return trip, and I've got a secret, and I want to hear this guy's secret, they may not have taken the time to check him, because, no, get him in here, he's got a secret for me, kind of a thing. And he may have planned that as well, or at least God certainly did.
That's true. So it could be he stashes the 18-inch long knife
by the idols of Gilgal.
By the idols of Gilgal, and then he retrieves it and goes back.
By the idols of Gilgal. Is that in the song? No.
But yeah, so that's my theory on why this plan works, and I think it's a pretty good theory.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to select a judge, and God's backing this judge, and, he pulls off the outrageous, you got to think God's into that. I mean, and that's pretty much a theme of Judges, too, if you think about it. I mean, all of these guys did the outrageous.
Yeah.
To a large point, and so, yeah, I think that you never go wrong giving credit to God.
Yeah, and that really seems to be the indication. I mean, it's the theme of Judges, right? Is that God is the one that decides these battles, right? He chooses the victor, and so there are times whenever people fail in battle, the Israelites fail in battle, just because they're not on God's side anymore, and God says, "I'm not going to let you win this fight." Right. And then there's other times when they win because they're back on God's side, right?
Exactly.
And that's the whole thing. right? I mean, read the story of Gideon.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole point of that story. Is it doesn't matter, what we do. It matters whose side we're on. Are we on God's side or not? And if we are, then we're not going to lose, regardless of how many guys we have.
Good point. Very good point. One other question I need about this is with regards to the sword. Why did it have to be double-sided? Double-sided sword.
I don't know. I hadn't even considered that.
Seems
so
to me
I was
like,
not prepared to answer that question.
You were not prepared?
I was not prepared.
Well, I don't know either, but it does say that it was double-sided, as if his fat's going to really keep me from running that through him. So I better. I don't know. I did.
That's where
I'm pretty sure.
That's not where my mind went.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I was thinking, the Word of God is a double-edged
Double-edged
sword.
It sure took down all that. Well, I just got to thinking. Did you think that maybe he thought whenever he got into this position, I might have to chop my way out? Maybe I got to cut him in half. Maybe I got, I don't know. Maybe there'd be a battle that ensues, and so it was kind of, one of those moments where there was over preparation, but it's okay.
I don't know, but I mean, I think the indication is that this sword is designed to be used for stabbing,
right?
And that might have something to do with why it's double-edged. I don't know, but I mean, think about knives that we have. We don't typically use them for stabbing, right? We use them for cutting, and so because of that, we don't need a double edge, right? A pocket knife doesn't need to have a sharp edge on both sides because we're going to use one side for cutting stuff, and we're just not going to use the other side. So that might be part of it. I don't know.
I'm sure glad we ran that rabbit.
Yeah. I unfortunately do not know that much about ancient weaponry, and so we'll have to have another episode about swords in the ancient Near East.
And why do we got a slingshot if we're dealing with swords?
So fun fact, which relates to what we've been talking about, but only kind of. Judges chapter 20. Which is the story that we were referencing earlier. Whenever we're talking about, you should introduce your middle schooler to the book of Judges. Judges chapter 20 is the story right after that. All right, so that bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
That we didn't want to get into.
Okay.
That stuff happens, and because of that, the children of Israel say, "Oh, we got to, clean up this mess. Right? We need to kill everybody responsible," by which they mean the Benjamites. Right? And so they go in and they fight Benjamin, that tribe, and then it makes this statement about the men of Benjamin, which is the tribe that Ehud is from, by the way.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
This is much later in time, but
Later.
anyway. So Judges chapter 20, verses 16 and 17, it says, "And the people of Benjamin mustered out of their cities on that day 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who mustered 700 chosen men. Among all these were 700 chosen men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair and not miss." Which is, I wonder if there's a little bit of hyperbole being used there.
I know, because I can't even see a hair very far away.
Yeah, but it's scripture.
And they're left-handed.
They are left-handed, yeah. Which is the point that I wanted to draw from this is, I don't know if there's a genetic thing going on there for Benjamin that makes them left-handed, if that's even how that works, or if Ehud had some kind of training regimen that he's taking these guys through. Again, this is much later in time. Ehud is dead and gone by this point. But you kind of wonder if maybe he didn't have some influence over the rest of Benjamin to say, we're going to take these left-handed guys and give them some kind of special training.
That's good.
For
That's interesting.
being a soldier. Of course, I don't know what the spiritual application of that is, but I thought it was interesting, so I put it in.
Well, in my illustrious career as a basketball player,
Mm-hmm.
I will say some of the hardest people to guard were left-handed people, because you just expect most folks are going to shoot with their right hand, okay? And when they go up for a layup, for instance, or any of those kind of things, you just expect the right hand to be dominant, so you kind of give your attention that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then they pull off a left-handed whatever, you know? I'm told that Michael Jordan, my favorite basketball player of all times, but I'm told that Michael Jordan spent a lot of time working on his left hand, left-handed jump shots and things of that nature, because he wanted to be that much of a dangerous threat. You don't know which, And so I don't know, is there such a thing as a left-handed slingshot? I don't know. I don't think so. But, I think that you're right. There's some reason that we're mentioning the left-handed idea. And when you connected back several chapters to Ehud, I wonder if you're right, that Ehud comes out of this story as this major hero, and he says, we're going to establish an entire class within the Army for left-handed guys.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and kind of what you see from this is the change in the culture of Israel over time.
Good point.
Right? And so at the beginning of this, Ehud's chapter 3, and he's only the second judge. So at the beginning of all this, you've got one guy that's, this lefty that's able to go in and kill Eglon. But you've got this one guy, and then it progresses to, by the time the book ends, we've got a whole army of Ehuds, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, you just kind of see the progression over time, which is another thing that's really important in the book of Judges, is this progression. Israel does not stay the same.
Yeah.
They change over time.
Good point.
All right, so problem number 2. Why is Eglon so fat?
We're going to need to bring your mom in for this to give us some...
Yeah, we were just talking about nutrition.
Yeah.
Right.
Honey, what has he been eating that he shouldn't have? We were just talking at the supper table, weren't we?
We were.
What was that word? Episcopalian?
Episcopalian, yeah. Pescatarian.
Pescatarian. You know what a pescatarian is? I think it's somebody eats fish.
Something along those lines, yeah.
I just...
Some kind of fish diet.
Fish diet.
Yeah. But it's probably not what Eglon was.
No, I don't think it was.
I don't think he was dieting at all.
No, if he's eating fish, he didn't slim down very much with his fish diet.
Yeah. So this is another one I don't exactly have an answer for, but...
Let's go to Batman.
Yeah, let's talk about Batman. Batman the Animated Series. Whenever I think of Eglon, there's one episode of Batman the Animated Series that comes to my mind.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. There's this episode where Batman is... there's this problem in Gotham where a bunch of homeless people are being kidnapped and they can't find them. Right? And Batman learns about it. And so he decides he's going to dress up as a homeless guy and get kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then he's going to...
He'll know.
He'll know. So he does. But they hit him over the head before, during the kidnapping, and he loses his memory. And he doesn't know that he's Batman. And so he thinks he's a homeless guy. Which is only somewhat relevant to...
I'm waiting for you to get to the point
here. Yeah. Anyway, he and all of these other homeless guys have been taken to... I don't even know what you call it, this camp where they're forced to do hard labor. As like
camp.
Slaves. And the boss that's running this whole thing is this fat guy.
Big guy.
He's constantly gnawing on a turkey leg. And,
oh, yeah?
And kind of the idea is everybody is working for him, and they're, doing all this hard labor, and they're not getting enough. Whereas... he's doing nothing and he gets everything.
He gets everything.
Right? And I think that's kind of the idea that is being put across by this story, is that you've got the children of Israel that, they're enslaved by the Moabites, and they're doing everything for these people. but they don't have anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they're slaves, and so they're not being given anything. Whereas the Moabites, specifically Eglon, he has everything, but he's not doing the work himself, right? Yeah. And I think that's kind of the idea. Really, what the idea I think, trying to be put across here is God has made this promise to the children of Israel that they would have abundance, right? And they are going to have, be in this land that flows with milk and honey. And I mean, foods, right? That's the idea that God is putting across is, this idea, you're going to have enough food constantly. And so it's kind of a slap in the face that Eglon comes along and he takes all of that from them. Yeah. Right? And basically he says, I'm going to gobble up all of the blessings of God. That, these are supposed to be stuff that you guys have, but you're not going to get them anymore because I'm here, I'm taking this stuff away from you. And so I think, again, that doesn't really answer the question of why literally is Eglon so fat. But it does answer the question, at least in my mind, of why does the Bible care?
Yes.
Right? Because I think the point is he's taking everything, right? And, it's this symbolic message of the children of Israel failed in their purpose that they were given by God. They have not followed the covenant, and so because of that, God took away their blessing and he gave it to somebody else. And this is a story essentially of how they get that back by going back to the covenant.
Wow.
Right?
I can see that. And I can make many applications to our materialism in America. And, we are, if you kind of, metaphorically speaking, we are fat men walking in the church today with regards to all that God has given to us, to the extent that we justify vanity and we justify spending money on things that don't really help the cause, but we got to have that, and are we any less guilty than Eglon with regards to, I guess we're more guilty because whatever Eglon did was physical in nature, you know what I'm saying? What we are doing, it's kind of like we're hogging up all the blessings of God and not sharing it with the world. I mean, you, me, and Mom, we support 5 missionaries, some of whom have trouble putting food on the table. And we're sitting over here in our padded pews. I think there's an Eglon application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing about it is part of God's covenant with his people. He talks a lot about this in the prophets whenever he's about to come in and take the children of Israel into Babylon. All right, basically the ultimate version of this, what we're talking about. But a lot of his message is those of you that have abundance haven't been taking care of those of you that don't.
Yeah.
Right? There's some of you guys that are rich and you're not taking care of the poor.
Yes.
And that's a lot of his message is I would rather you do that than sacrifice to me.
Yeah.
And so,
powerful.
Those of us that live in America where we have abundance, I think we kind of have to ask ourselves, are we being Eglons, right? Because essentially what happens is the children of Israel, they become Eglon, right? They start taking everything to themselves and not giving to anyone else. This greed, this gluttony for really everything, right? Food and all kinds of wealth and all these different things. They become all of these different things, and God punishes them for it.
Yeah.
Right? And so, obviously, we shouldn't do the same, right? We should look at their example and say, "Hey, I don't want to be like that," right? Because God punished them for that, and God blesses them when they're the underdogs. Right?
Yeah, and put a bullseye on your heart like it's been put on my heart. You hear me ask this question probably too often, but I want you to think about the biggest room in your church building right now. Think about it, okay? How many hours a week is the auditorium in use? But we got to have it. Why? When you've got missionaries that are literally struggling to put food on the table, why do you have to have this massive room that is barely used during the week. I'll tell you why, because we have become a church of Eglons. You're getting me excited here. My blood pressure is going up. Make application.
Yeah, and I mean, to that same point, looking at these prophets and what they're saying about this idea of I would rather, have your obedience. I would rather you care for the poor than sacrifice to me. Is that not essentially, the message that we would be presented with as well?
Wow.
Right. That I would rather you take care of people than sit in your auditorium and worship me, right? Because it's not that God doesn't want our worship,
Sure.
but it's that God recognizes that caring for your fellow man is one of the primary ways that you can worship Him,
Ooh,
right? And are we doing that?
good point.
And if you are, God bless you.
Right.
But if you're not, you have to question, am I becoming an Eglon?
You got me.
All right, problem number 3. What do the idols at Gilgal have to do with anything?
This might be the one thing that I feel could have relevance. I don't really care why the guy was fat, and I'm not really sure I care why he got to hide the sword on the way in. But I would like to know about these idols at Gilgal.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not a lot of explanation given to it, right? You read the story, and it just kind of says, yeah, he's at the idols at Gilgal, and
Twice.
yeah, and there's no explanation of, did he come to the idols at Gilgal and he's so disgusted by it
Right.
that he turns around and he says, we're not letting this happen anymore. Does he, like we talked about earlier, did he stash his sword there? And it doesn't say. But there's kind of, I don't know. Probably what's going on here is that the idols at Gilgal are this landmark that is kind of the divider between the territory of Moab proper and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Moab proper isn't really the right term, because this isn't actually Moab that he's in. But basically the idea of, we've actually taken this territory. This is where, Eglon's, his palace is.
Seat of power.
Yeah, exactly. And so, everybody else, they're also enslaved to Moab, right? And you've got all of that still going on. But it kind of, the indication is this is how you get out and go back into Israel, right? As you pass by these idols at Gilgal. So you kind of got that idea of that's probably why they're there, why they exist in the first place is as this dividing point. But that doesn't explain why they're mentioned in the story. Right? Twice, exactly. So it's kind of this dividing point between the territory of Moab and Israel's territory. It's probably what's going on here. But again, that doesn't really explain, why is this being used twice in the story? What's actually going on here? So here's my theory. Reiterating part of what we read, this is verses 19 and 20 from Judges chapter 3. It says, "But he himself turned back at the idols near Gilgal, and he said, I have a secret message for you, O king. And he commanded silence, and all his attendants went out from his presence. And Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. And he arose from his seat." So there's a couple things about this that are kind of interesting. First of all is, why does Eglon react in this way? Right? Ehud comes in and he says, I have a secret for you. Why does Eglon say, okay, clear the room? This guy that just brought me tribute has something to say to me. And so we got to make sure that nobody's in here whenever he does. Right? Why does Eglon take this as seriously as he does? Really is kind of the question here. And then you have Ehud immediately, starting off his secret with, I have a message for you from God. The implication, I think, is that Ehud goes to the idols at Gilgal. Right? And that's kind of the point of the journey where they will all be. And then kind of his trick is that he goes back and he implies to Eglon, I have this message from the gods.
Yes.
Right? I've had some kind of divine revelation that I'm going to give you.
That makes sense.
And Eglon says, oh, I need to hear this, right? You just had the gods talk to you.
Because you were just at the idols of Gilgal.
Yeah, exactly. You're just there. And so obviously you have this message for me. So I want to hear what you have to say, right? And so probably he's playing up this idea of Eglon's, pagan identity. That's probably...
That's very good. I hadn't thought of that. That's a powerful point.
So anyway, as we've talked about, there's several different things that could be going on here, right? This is just a theory. And so there's a lot of other things that might be happening. I kind of like this theory.
I agree. I like it too.
That's why I put it in.
I think also there's this double, well, not double-edged sword, but it kind of is a double-edged sword. There's this double meaning. Because he really does have a message from God.
Yeah.
And I'm fixing to stick it in your belly.
Yeah, exactly. And so kind of the implication almost seems to be, he says, or Eglon thinks he's saying, I have a message for you from, Baal or something along those lines. And he says, I do have a message, a divine revelation for you, but it's not from who you're thinking, right? It's from the actual God.
Yeah, it's not what you expect.
Yeah, exactly. But all of that is subtext. Right?
Yeah.
And so there's not proof to say this is what actually happened. So you can disagree with me, and I will have nothing to say.
I think that's a very, very reasonable theory. Because, like you say, it's brought up twice.
Mm-hmm.
They probably had some kind of a port of entry where people got checked, when they're coming into the presence of the king and all that kind of thing. And back then, with the pagan mindset, what better place than, come in here, bow down to our gods. We'll inspect you while you're doing that. Oh, yeah, you seem to be worshiping, so you can come on in, kind of a thing. Which, again, would play into your conclusion. So he returns from that very spot. And you know that Eglon's going to be thinking, well, he was just with my gods. And so, that makes sense. He's got a message. I want to hear what the message is.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, I like this theory, but again, thanks. But I think there's a little bit more to this whole thing.
Oh, yeah?
So that's the first time that these idols at Gilgal are mentioned. But as we've pointed out several times already, they are mentioned multiple times. Right? They're mentioned twice. And so... oh, wait, I didn't... Never mind, I cut out that slide. So, anyway, they're mentioned twice. The second time that they're mentioned is kind of interesting because, Ehud, he just goes past them, right? And it's kind of mentioned as this, he, made it to safe territory. That kind of implication that he just, he goes on. What's interesting about it, though, is they're never mentioned again, right? And so, Ehud, he goes in and he destroys the Moabites. He does all of this cleaning up of their culture and all this stuff, but it never says, and then Ehud goes in and he destroys the idols of Gilgal, right? Which, maybe he does and it just doesn't mention it. But that's an interesting idea, that it's not as though Ehud is leading this religious movement or this revival in Israel, so much as it is this political thing, that God, he sends Ehud to rescue his people from slavery because they've cried out to him. But there's also kind of this implication that they're just a step removed from where they were under the last judge.
Yeah.
Right? And in fact, something interesting about that is if you read the story of Othniel, right before the story of Ehud, it says specifically that God's Spirit empowers Othniel to rescue the children of Israel from their slavery. And it never says that about Ehud. Right? And Ehud's only the second judge, so he's still a pretty good character in all of this. They get progressively worse. But you still kind of see, he's not quite as good as this last guy, right? Othniel, he has the Spirit of God. He's, what is it? The brother, or I can't remember. He's related to Caleb, right? So he related to a famous figure from just recent history, and in Israel. And so you kind of get this idea of, this is a really upstanding guy that has been taken, and he is going to judge the children of Israel now. Whereas Ehud, I mean, you kind of get some of that, but really you don't get much character for him at all, right?
Right.
You get, he's left-handed, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So, all of this is not just me surmising things, actually. I'm kind of talking like, this is just a theory, and a lot of this has been. The reason for Ehud going to the idols and then coming back, that is all a theory. But this idea of the children of Israel being on this downward spiral,
Right.
That's actually something that Scripture it says itself. Right, which is interesting because that's not how we ever describe it. Right, whenever we talk about the children of Israel during this time, we always say it's a cycle.
Yeah,
right.
I've used that myself.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of true, right? I mean it's true enough. We typically say it's this circle that we even put points on the circle, and we say the children of Israel, they turn away from God, and then they get they get taken over and enslaved, and then they cry out to God. God sends a judge to rescue them, and then after a while they turn away from God, and the cycle starts over again. And that's true. That is exactly what happens. But the way that Scripture describes it is that plus this downward motion of everything's getting worse, right? It's this downward spiral. That's what the picture is.
It's more like a corkscrew.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we are going in this circle, but it's also continuously getting worse, right? And so you get to the end of the book of Judges, and it's as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is probably the worst that Israel ever is throughout the entire history of the Bible. This is pretty much as bad as it gets. I mean, maybe towards the end of the Old Testament, when they're being taken into exile, it's worse by that point. But this is a pretty bad point in Israel's history, and it's certainly far worse than it was at the beginning of the book of Judges.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea. But again, as I pointed out, this is backed by Scripture. That's what it actually says. So Judges chapter 2, verses 18 and 19, it says, "Whenever the Lord raised up judges for them," and this is talking about that cycle, right? It actually describes the cycle itself. And it says, the people, they turn away from God, and then they get enslaved by these other people, and then God raises up judges for them. And the Lord was with that judge, and he saved them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who afflicted and oppressed them. But whenever the judge died, they turned back and were more corrupt than their fathers, going after other gods, serving them and bowing down to them. They did not drop any of their practices or their stubborn ways."
Wow.
Which, that's, they were more corrupt than their fathers thing. That is what we never talk about, right? We kind of have this idea of they're always at the same level, right? And God's always just kind of a step away. That they're not really losing anything, but they just, we're not going to worship God anymore. Oh, we were wrong. We're going to go back. And that doesn't seem to be the idea. The idea seems to be their knowledge of God is being lost, right, over and over again. And they come back a little bit every time, right?
Wow.
They'll go back up a little. And there will be this revival, but it's never quite as good as it has been in the past. And they're always losing a little bit more, to the point when, by the end of the book of Judges, it's as though they don't even know God at all, right? You read the story of Jephthah, and he promises to sacrifice whatever comes out of his door first, and people will always say, "Oh, he's expecting an animal to come out because they would, live with their their animals in their house, which is true. But at the same time, there is also this idea that this conquering hero is returning home, and what do you expect except that there's going to be people coming out, right? The servants are going to come out and welcome their master home, and so probably what's actually going on is he's expecting a servant rather than his daughter to come out, and so you get to this point where these judges, they think God wants human sacrifice, right? And I mean, it implies he does sacrifice his daughter, right? And so you get this idea that they're not actually going back to God, right? They're remembering, oh, we had this God, and he helped us way back when, and so they're turning back and crying out to him, but they're not remembering who God actually is.
It's not a full revival.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of, we got caught, oh, baloney, now God, who's that God again that took us out of that last one? Mm-hmm. And it's a generational decline. I like what you're saying. It's a corkscrew. It's not just this. I've preached this forever. It's not this. It's this. Mm-hmm. Every generation they get further and further, which I think, again, brings us back to a massive application for you and I, and that is that, we have got to be people who have radical repentance, not just, I'm sort of sorry, kind of a thing. That's why I'm really afraid for the church in America today, and probably beyond, but that's where I serve. I'm afraid, I really think it's going to take real cataclysmic upheaval for the church in America to ever really admit its materialistic gluttony, selfishness, and need for not just a sort of revival, but a full return. May I use the word restoration? A full restoration back to God.
Yeah. Oh, I actually did have that slide in here, but I had them out of order. But yeah, so we kind of come to this question, or this thought at the end here of, if that could happen to Israel, imagine what could happen to us, right? Israel is God's chosen people, right? They are the people that God calls out of slavery in Egypt, the people that God has made a promise to. And in America, we have a tendency to think that we're, like the new Israel, right? God has made some kind of promise to us, and we're his chosen people now.
Yeah, the church exists elsewhere, but it's not like us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're American Christians.
Yes, and we're wrong. Right?
Yes, we are.
We are not God's chosen people. The church is God's chosen people. That's true. But the church has the same stipulation as Israel does, right? We have this idea in the church of, if you're not actually following God, then you can fall away and you can receive punishment just like they did in the past. And so we have this same thing that can happen to us. And so we look at Israel, and they're on this downward spiral. Right? They might turn back to God every once in a while, but they're never as good as they used to be.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's not exactly what we are. That every once in a while we kind of get in our head that I ought to do better.
Yeah.
And we turn back to God just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
We do 5% better or something like that for a time, and then we stop, and suddenly we're doing 10% worse. Right? We go on this downward spiral, and I think, as you were pointing out, that's the problem that we have in the church in America today, is that we're going on this downward spiral. And part of that problem is the fact that they were not, passing this all on, right? And I mean, that's exactly what's going on in this story, is that the children of Israel, they know God, and they don't teach the next generation who God is. And so the next generation, they don't know God. Yeah. All right, and eventually they say, "Oh, there's this guy that my parents worshipped, and so maybe I'll, pray to him. We'll cry out to him."
Which sounds exactly like what we do in America today with our children.
Mm-hmm.
They get caught. They're drug addicts. They're Grandma used to go to church somewhere. I think I'll go there. And they go in and they repent for a moment, but it's not really because they want to return to God as much as that I hated that I got caught, and so I got to deal with this kind of thing.
Yes.
Corkscrew Christianity. I just came up with that. We need to write us a book.
Yeah. So how often is it in the church that we have someone come to Christ, and they really all they're doing is they're coming to church on Sunday morning. They're maybe they get baptized or something along those lines. And good for them. But really, what happens is they become a mediocre Christian.
Yeah.
Right. And we celebrate that.
Yeah.
And we say, this is wonderful that we brought somebody in and we made somebody else mediocre.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's how we are in the church today. Is we celebrate the fact that some of us are okay. Right. And okay it's not okay.
It's not okay.
Right?
It's not holy. It's not sanctified. It's not okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we want a true revival, we have to be the kinds of people that are pushing past that idea of okay, that are pushing past, mediocre Christianity. And we have to be people that are looking for extraordinary, right? And then passing that extraordinariness on to other people.
Yeah.
Because if we don't do that, we're just going to do the Israel thing, and we're going to be going in this downward spiral of mediocre, starts getting worse and worse.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we start celebrating, less and less good, right? And after a while, we're going to be people that are just outwardly celebrating sin because, we think that's good now. Right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know who God is anymore.
And not to be too personal, but I live and serve in the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've noticed about Christians around about me is that they get crazy excited when little Johnny learns to lead his first song at church, or reads his first passage, or now he serves at the communion table, or whatever. And they're all excited about that. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but they don't have enough vision to recognize that little Johnny, 72% chance that little Johnny, by the time he turns 18, he's going to leave the church, because learning to serve communion and read the announcements and singing a song from the pulpit and waving your hand correctly and all of that does not cause true Christianity. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm afraid of. Is that's the corkscrew kind of effect that we're having in the church. We are expecting our children to be mediocre and celebrating their mediocrity rather than hoping that our child will grow up and move to a third world country and perhaps die in the trenches for God because that person was sacrificial. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be preachers. That's kind of our theme song. We don't sing it real loud because we know how shameful it is, but that's kind of the way it is. We don't want to be missionaries and full-time ministers because that's sacrificial. That kind of stuff. That proves it. I just want my child to grow up, be mediocre, and know how to, to usher people into the right pew and make sure that when they give the announcements that they say it with the right inflection, and know how to work a microphone, none of which shows real passion for the Lord. And that's what, especially here in Northeast Arkansas, I see, that's the pinnacle of our goals for our children. If we can just get them to do that. And we're losing 72% of them to the world upon graduation from high school because we didn't give them anything really worthwhile. Mm-hmm. I'm fearful that we are a bunch of eglons.
Yeah. And a lot of this issue as well is not that, we're raising a mediocre generation. It's that mediocre people are doing the raising, right? And I mean, I think that's true because you look at extraordinary people, and I think there are some.
Sure.
Right? There are all kinds of people, but you see every once in a while you'll notice a family that is like several generations of missionaries, right? And they're still extraordinary. They're still some of the best people that you'll meet, right? And you kind of say, what happened there?
Yeah.
Why is it that they're so amazing and these other people are just normal, right? And I think a lot of that is you have to be extraordinary in order to consistently bring up extraordinary.
That is so powerful. Mediocre people are going to have mediocre children. Extraordinary people are going to have extraordinary children. Generally speaking, that's the rule.
Mm-hmm.
So, you become the generation of extraordinary, and guess what you're going to have? Most likely. Good lesson, my friend.
Thank you.
Man, every week I just get something new. It's good stuff.
Well, thank you. I try. All right. Don't forget to keep in touch with us.
Not him.
Yeah, not him. Us. But yeah, we, as I pointed out several times, we have a new Instagram page, which is @RestorationCast. So if you want to follow us on there, you should.
I'm the Vanna White of the moment.
Yes. We also have our website, which is RestorationSchoolBiblicalStudies.com. And you can go there, or you can search up sunnychilds.com, and it's part of that website as well.
Takes the same place.
Yes, is there a page on there that's actually for restoration?
There is.
Yeah, so you can search it up either way. We also have a full library of episodes on Spotify. So search up Restoration Cast on Spotify, and you'll see all of the backdated episodes and archive stuff that we've got. This is our 3rd season, so we've got a lot of other stuff that we've said, or maybe you missed last week or the week before or something like that, and you want to go back and listen to those. They're all on Spotify if you're interested. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys next week.